Hi guys, my name is Jade Olson, and today I'm going to be talking about the life of Anna Freud. So Anna was born in Vienna, Austria on December 3rd of 1895. She was also the youngest of all her siblings, and she could be explained as really not having the happiest of childhoods, as she had very strained relationships with most of the members of their family besides her father. And the most notable relationship to talk about is the sibling rivalry between her and her immediate older sister, Sophie, where it kind of caused problems between everyone because it was such a strong rivalry that it would cause problems between her and her mother, and it would cause problems between her and her father sometimes because Sophie was also very close with her father as well. So that sibling rivalry had stunted so much of Anna's memories as a child, I believe, and kind of made them to be not as happy because of the fighting and the arguing. One thing to note is that Sophie even went as far as to not inviting Anna to her wedding, which normally, even if you have a sibling rivalry, you invite your sibling, I think, but that's just me. Um, However, like I did state, she did have a pretty good relationship with her father, whether it was spending time on their travels as a family, those two would go off and do their own thing, or whether it was them spending time indulging into his work in his office or going to the Vienna Psychoanalytic Society. They really had spent a lot of time together, and he also was really interested in her mind and how it had worked and how he had almost kind of used that as a way to like analyze her, almost as if she was like a client. He kind of used her as a client. And one thing that I do want to note is although I did say that she didn't have the happiest of childhoods, after Sigmund Freud had become more established in the world of psychology, they had traveled a lot. And one place that is notable is their farmhouse in the Bavarian Alps, where her and her brothers would go sailing a lot. And this is a memory that Anna Freud had talked about and shared with in her writing. And she stated that her and her two older siblings, being her brothers, had gone out on a sailing trip and everything was going well and everything was fun and everything was great until a big gust of wind blew the sail and it became flying. And the boys were yelling at her, like, get down, because they didn't want her to hit her head. Although and everything did turn out great and they got back to their mother safe, and her mother even held all three kids, she explained that as being the greatest adventure she had gone on, especially with her siblings being, and she explained that it was just a great time for her to be out with them and creating those relationships. And the reasons why I am explaining that is because although a lot of people do see her as just having a negative childhood, she still did have the ability to create like happy memories and be able to note that she did. So although there was a lot of bad times, there was still some good. At an early age, Anna also had some encounters with the Vienna Psychoanalytic Society. At age 14, she was already starting to go with her father, where she could be seen sitting in the corner of the library on a ladder and overhearing their conversations of whatever caseload they might be dealing with or anything that is needing to be going down in the conversation. Although she did deal with a lot of her father's work and try to be really deep dived into that, that's not originally what she ended up doing for a while at a young age. As a young woman, she actually decided to do some teaching. She was notably known as a gifted teacher, and she had decided after she passed her exams that she was going to travel to England and be a teacher's apprentice, which is essentially just her working under a teacher and learning. It's almost as if you're pretty much working to learn. And she had gotten this experience cut short due to the World War I, where she had to flee back to Vienna. There in 1915, she ended up passing her teacher's exam and ended up teaching at the Cottage Lyceum. She did early education, and I believe that this part of her life is really what inspired her later work. And that is because being in a classroom, you get to see how a child's mind is really working and what works best. I do also think that play therapy came from this time of experience for her, and I'm going to explain that in a different slide as well, a little bit more in depth. But her experience as a teacher really gave her the gift of being able to be the child psychoanalyst she was. And so let's get into that. One thing I want to talk about before I get into her main points of work is that there is a difference between Sigmund Freud and her. Um, and I mean, I'm sure we all know this. However, Sigmund had worked more with adults and was more worried about unveiling their unconscious, while Anna believed that you could do that way earlier and be able to help start up the development again at a younger age so that they don't have those developmental problems as they get older and then have to do it all as they're older. She believed that it could be started at an early age and just be taken care of. And so, like I was just saying, that she's most known for her establishment of child psychoanalysis as well as play therapy. So, what play therapy can kind of be described as is what Anna did is she would either literally be playing with them, running around on a rug, or sitting down with them and building blocks or coloring. She believed that this would help build the therapist-client relationship so that the child feels that this is a person I can trust. But she also believed that play therapy would help with the child becoming impatient and wanting to walk around and jump up and down, or they would be able to actually sit and talk to her after they build that therapeutic client relationship. She also did note that she believes that parents should play a role in this therapy because A, they're children, and B, she thinks that they should also be involved so they kind of know what's going on. Although she did establish that, she did also have a lot of notable writing and journals that she had published, excuse me. And one of the most well-known ones would be The Ego and the Mechanism of Defense. So some critiques of Freud's work is mainly within the people that were in the child psychoanalytic field. They believe that her work was more theoretical and lacked a lot of empirical evidence, which in my mind at that time, like that's what she had to do since she was building this and it was becoming something that needed to be, it was new. It needed to have the observations instead of having the science to back it up. She also had a really big feud with another person who was very pivotal within the psychoanalytic field, and her name is Melanie Klein. So Melanie Klein and Freud both had been very successful within the field, but the one thing is that they both had different views on the same thing. And this kind of caused some problems within the psychoanalytic field. But one of the main differences that should be talked about is that the age of which children could be analyzed. For Melanie, she believed that they could be um, analyzed at a very young age, and Freud believed that they couldn't be. And the main reason for that being is that psychoanalytic therapy can be very harsh, it can be very to the point and don't beat around the bush. And therefore, Freud believed that at the point, children may not understand to the point of what you're trying to say to them from what you're analyzing as a psychoanalytic therapist. Um, This got so bad, like I stated previously, that they had to hold scientific discussions about both of their work. This went on for 11 sessions, and they could be named now as the controversial discussions. And they're actually really quite interesting if you want to read that, if you feel inclined to read that. I don't know if everyone would want to. Now, the later life of Anna Freud is paid a lot of attention to her father. She dedicated so much of her life already, but she also dedicated a lot of her time to translating all of his work. She had never really gotten married or had any children, and this was primarily due to the idea that Sigmund Freud really didn't like her having any male suitors or any suitors of any kind. He especially didn't like male suitors because he believed that it would kind of cut their relationship off of in some ways. And he also believed that her having a relationship would stunt the amount of work and progression in the field that she has already gotten so far into. However, she did end up having a romantic partner, and her name was Dorothy Burlingham, and that was who she had started a lot of things with, especially being the Hampstead War nurseries. And as I had said, she dedicated a lot of her life to her father, but she also ended up taking care of her father and her mother after her father had fallen ill, where he had also passed away at that house. And then also, Anna had passed away in that same house in October 9th of 1982. Um, Her home had been dedicated to her father as a museum for him. However, now it's kind of a museum for both, but that was her initial wanting of it all. So that should conclude our talk today. I do appreciate you coming in and listening, and I hope you all have a good one. Thank you. Bye.